And so 6 o'clock instead of 6:30. And working. And another good tool, another few good tools. If you like this stuff, this is a great book, very easy read, called Letters of Light. It gives just a little bit of every letter. Very, very good book. You'll enjoy it. So I'm not, whatever I say, I'm just going to touch a little thing about every letter, but you can get a lot more of every letter. If you want to go really deeper into it, the book, it's called right now, but the author is Yitzhak Ginsburg, like this thick. And he, like this thing, literally. And he goes through everything that mentions in the Talmud of a letter, he brings it there. Everything he mentions in the Zohar about a letter, he brings it there. So there he really goes into each letter, why it's shaped exactly the way it's shaped, and taking on all different forms. And it's super interesting. But you have to get ready for a lot of follow. It's very difficult. And of course, reminder, I don't know if anybody still wants to go, but I don't know if it's still possible to register, but there's still possible to register at pushbuttontheheights.com, you know. Okay, so then I recap. Okay, so hope everyone was practicing. And just go back to the beginning and start with the letter. First letter is Aleph. That, and we have Gimel, Aleph. Does the silly pictures, does it help? Does it help make the okay, the Zion? You think you see the dagger? Chet, you see the chuppah? And you see the tea kettle in the text? Of course, the Yud, which represents everything starts with the Yud, right? We discussed that it's the foundation letter. It also represents being humble. Everything starts with humility, being humble. Then we have the Kaf. We discussed the difference between the Kaf and the Bet, right? Remember the difference? Kaf and the Bet. Remember the Bet has a base, the base sticking out, and the Kaf is more curved, right? It's curved. And what is it? Not Kaf. Chaf. And the Chaf Safit, and Chaf. So in some places it's called Chaf Safit, which means the end, because we end the word with it. It's also known as a long Chaf, because it's the Chaf is this part is comes down. So it's a long Chaf. That and the Lamed. What is the Lamed? We said, what is Lamed? What does it mean? I remember? It's to learn. Lamed is to learn, and Lamed is to teach also. Both teaching and learning. Remember both. That's also the tallest letter, right? It's the letter that the above all letters, because that's above all is teaching, even though teachers are always underpaid, and a lot of times they say if you can't make it anything else, you're a teacher. But in reality, the teacher is the most important, and yeah. So we're ready. What letter is this? Anybody know? Mem, one of my favorite letters. And what sound does it make? Exactly. Now, the mem, you would look at the mem, looks like a mountain. The mountain. And then the yud on top over here is like the flag coming out of the mountain. Now, mem is important to be a mountain because what's the numerical value of mem? 40. Last letter, Lamed was 30, the mem is 40. Now, 40, which mountain were revived for 40 days. Mount Sinai. And by the way, who was on the mountain for 40 days? Moshe. It starts with the man. And he was on the mountain, right? And I'll tell you in a minute why that's important. Especially make it 40 days. But first, the meaning of the word man. The meaning is, it's like the word mayim, which is water. Mayim is water. Men, which is spelled men. You put the yud in the middle, it's mayim. Okay, so mayim is water. And by the way, remember there was a big rain at one time? Yeah, the ark and all that stuff. Anybody remember how many days it rained for? 40. 40. You got it. Now you remember. 40 days and nights. 40 days and nights. Or 40 days and nights it rained for. And by the way, there's a mitzvah connected with water. When I think of a mitzvah that's connected to water, that's also a mitzvah connected to water. But mikvah, which starts with a mem, and actually the measurement, that's an English word, but the measurement of water that it has to be in the mikvah is called mem sa, 40 sa. That's the measurement of water that has to be measurement of water that has to be mikvah. That's when you measure it's 40 sa water. So 40, which is mem, is connected to mayim, which is water. Now, when Moshe, right, went up to the mountain, right, for mem days, for 40 days, right, he went there to get the Torah. And the Torah is compared to water. Why is compared to water? So, I'm going to give you a few comparisons to water. Number one is that water, you put water on the top of the mountain, will it stay there? No, it's going to come down to the lowest place. The same thing with Torah. Torah came, that's the nature of water. Water is always will go lower. It will come from a high place and came lower. The Torah came up from on high, not to the top of the mountain. Yeah, the top of the mountain symbolically, but from Hashem. And He let it come down to us. It says in Pirkei Avos, Ethics of Our Fathers, chapter 1, Mishnah 5, I think it is. It says there that we should treat our learning of Torah like our thirst for water. And just like water, every day we have to drink water. You have to drink half of your weight in ounces, what is it? Whatever, right? So many ounces you have to drink a day of water. And so we have to drink a lot of water. Could we say, that's okay, I had water last week, I'm okay. No, we don't say that. Every single day we need to have water. So we don't suffice in saying, I got my dose of Torah last week, I'm okay. No, really, I'm okay. Okay. No, really, you're not okay. You really need your daily dose of water. And not just that, but even though water is free, just like Torah is free, we can go online anytime, 24/6, and get as much Torah as we want for free. So many sources we can get online. Wachal.org/parsha. You can stay there for the whole week. Enough to read. There's so many places to go to learn, right? So much water we get. Nevertheless, what happens if you're in Disney? What happens if you're stuck in the desert and you want water? And you're willing to pay any price. The same thing when it comes to learning Torah, even though it's free, you just go a few miles and go to the beach and take as much of it as you want for free. You can fill your trunk up. But at the same time, we're willing to pay anything for Torah. Just like water. So Torah is compared to water in many, many ways. Famous story in Talmud where when Rabbi Akiva, who was who was caught by the Romans, and he was asked, how could you be learning Torah? It's against, you're risking your life by learning Torah, and it's against the Torah to risk your life. How could you do that? He told him a story. He said there was once a fox that went to the water, and it saw the fish swimming back and forth. So he asked the fish, "Why are you going back and forth like that?" The fish said, "Well, look at the nets over there. The fishermen have their nets over there. They're going to catch me." So the fox said, "I have an idea. I'll protect you. Come to me, and I'll protect you." And the fish, of course, told the water that at least now I have a chance at living. If I come up to you, I don't stand a chance because a fish has to be in water to live. Same thing for a Jew. We have to be immersed in Torah to live. And so water is compared to Torah, and that's why it's no coincidence that men, for Mayim, also represents the 40 days, the men 40 days that Moshe spent, the Moshe Rabbeinu spent on the mountain with the flag. Also, don't forget that Yud on top there, which is the flag, which again you're going to see this over and over again. You can see this concept over and over again. Remember, we said that every letter starts with the Yud, writing the Yud. Well, the Yud also, we discussed last time, represents humility, right? And the Torah says that Moshe was the most humble man that ever was. Doesn't mean he didn't know who he was. Humility doesn't mean that we don't know who we are. We don't know our qualities. That's not what humility means. But in order to, right, humility means that we know our qualities, but even though we know we might be the best at whatever we're doing, we recognize that we got that as a gift from Hashem. We have to work in it, of course. Even that, we realize that the tools that we have, the opportunities that we have are gifts from Hashem. And who knows, someone would have given the same tools, the same opportunities, could have taken it so much further. And when we recognize that's humility, and that doesn't make us sporty and stay grounded. And that's why the Torah was given through Moshe, because Torah needs humility. Someone is too haughty, then the Torah doesn't fit. Our heads are too full and can't get Torah. So it's no coincidence. Don't forget the flag over there, which represents the Yud, which represents the humility. Also, when looking at the men, don't forget it looks different than the tet. Don't mix it up. Tet, think of always a tea kettle. Think of the mountain. Tea kettle, tet, mountain, men. Now the men. Oh, there's mine here. Water, right? Now the men comes in two forms. There's the men and the men safit, or the shlas men, which means the closed men, or an end men. Again, here we have the idea of a letter and a final letter. A mem, anywhere in the word where you have a mem, is a mem besides for the last letter. If it's the last letter in the word, then it's a final mem. If you go back to over here, you have mayim, spelled mem, yud, mem. You see the mem, yud, mem, mem, yud, mem. The first letter is a regular mem. The second mem is a final mem. Right? Anytime you have a mem at the end of the word, it's a final mem. So the mem represents Torah. So comes in these two forms. You have two parts of Torah. You have the open Torah. Right? You said it's called the end mem. So mem something which means the end mem. In Yiddish, actually, some people call that an end mem, which means an end, the last letter, and some people call it a shlas mem, which means a close. And so you have the idea of it being the last letter. You also have the Kabbalistic idea of shlas mem, which is actually rules that we went to the class was called shlas mem, which means the closed mem, which represents the whole idea of a mem. A mem, we said, represents Torah. Within Torah, you have the revealed parts of Torah, and you have the hidden parts of Torah. Closed means hidden. It's closed, right? You have right. You have the Talmud, which is like real parts of Torah, and you have the Zohar, which is the closed parts of Torah. Same numerical value, same 40. Now, looking at the mem, we can't get mixed up with the mem and a different letter, which we are about to learn soon, but we don't know yet. But just recognize that there's a difference. This one is more square. This one has a slice cut off of it, or round. Okay, just to keep in our. Next, we have the nun. Oh, sorry. What letter is this? Nun. And nun. What sound does nun make? Like an N. Right? And how much is, what's its numerical value? 50, right? Yeah. Yeah. And remember that the nun looks similar to a different letter which we learned in the beginning, the third letter or the fourth space, and so it doesn't look similar to what letter looks similar to? To the glamorous gimel, right? The gimel. But the nun doesn't have a shoe, right? Unlike the gimel, which is running. Remember, the gimel was running away from the dalet. Remember the form, the gimel. Sorry, the gimel was running after the dalet, right? Because the gimel is the giver. Gimel gives. Dalet is the receiver, right? So the gimel has that shoe in the back of it, right? And the nun, no heel, wearing flats. The nun, which is 50, represents the neshama. By the way, the nun should not be mixed up, not just with the gimel, right? Before we get mixed up with the gimel, but there's another two letters it can get mixed up with. It can get mixed up with the vet, the kaf, and the chaf. But what would be the difference? How do you know the difference between them? Okay, so the bet has a base to it, of course, and the kaf is curved, but there's one more and probably the most important thing we should remember, and that is the width. The nun is narrower. The nun is narrow. The bet is a full-size letter. The chaf, the bet, kaf, and chaf are full-size letters. The nun is narrow, much more narrow. It's half or 2/3 the width of a bet and a bet. Now, this is a common mistake that's made. We see this inside mezuzahs, tefillin, when a sufferer could write it, and if they're not careful enough, or if they're in a rush, they can make the nun a little too big, and then to him it looks fine because he's reading it, he's double checking it, and that's the way we work. I mean, when we write something and we know what's written there, and so we just read it the way, and we're programmed not to catch our mistakes because it's just where we are. But even if it's not, so first of all, that's where we are on ourselves. Anytime we write something, we're not good at picking up our own mistakes. But in addition to that, even someone that is good at picking up mistakes, when you know what it's supposed to say there, so you read it and you don't pick a lot of the times. So that's why sometimes so many times somebody makes mistakes. Scribe makes a mistake when they're checking mezuzah tefillin. We see it over and over again. We just had to show here cases in the past 2 weeks over here, and we see big mistakes that can happen when it's being written. And I'm a fan of even though halachically we need an eye, it needs to be checked by a human eye. I'm a big fan of using a computer check as well. Say I'm not taking away the eye, but use a computer check because a computer check to pick up on things that the eye is too used to. But again, a letter like a nun, if it's written just a bit longer, it can get mixed up with the stuff easily, and then it's no good. So if you ever are buying a mezuzah and they ask you, do you want what quality do you want? Do you want bottom quality? You want better quality? Or you have A, whatever, however they're rating it. So you'll know that that this is one of the things. How careful is the sufferer when writing it? Something I could have a problem with. Okay. See, what is 50?
Why?
Oh, why is it 50?
Why is divided 50?
So you're saying what does it represent? What does 50 represent, or why is this less 50? 50 is a jubilee. A Yovel is 50, and it represents 50 is already it's already a symbol of perfection. We're going to learn soon that 100 is perfection. 50 is already there's different levels of perfection you have. You'll find number 10 is a full number. Then 100 is 10 within 10. That's perfection. And then you have 50 is already a level of perfection. So a jubilee year, which in the land of Israel, every 7 years is called is a Shemitah year. This year in Israel is a Shemitah year, which means the land has to stay. We don't work the land in Israel. Now that's not to be mixed up with land rotations, which we have in all parts of the world, where agriculturally it is better for the land if we let it rest. We just keep on working the land; it doesn't have time to replenish its nutrients. And the way Hashem made it is it needs a time to rest. And so, scientifically, every 7 years, you're supposed to rest. The land is supposed to rest. Yeah, in order to rejuvenate its nutrients. But it's not to be mixed out, even though scientifically it works out that way. It's not scientifically the reason why we do it. Because if it was, then the rule of Torah would be that we should have land rotations, which is what they do in America. You work this part of the land this year, and then you switch it off this year. You do this one, and then you have a 7-year cycle where every year you're leaving another part of the land. You don't go out of business for a year. That's crazy. It's not right, but that's what the Torah tells us to do. To have that craziness. So that's every 7 years. You have the 7-year cycle. Within that 7 years, you have the Shemitah year, then the Hakhel year. You have different specific years within the 7-year cycle. 7 cycles of 7. After 7 years, next cycle of 7, we have the Jubilee year, the Yovel year. So the 50, also we have this concept Kabbalistic called Non Shari Bina, this 50 gates of understanding. So, why not? You ask the question. So you have coming up the holiday of Shavuot. Actually, next week we have the holiday of Lag BaOmer. So next Wednesday night we're gonna have a bonfire outside. We'll have a barbecue. The Bat Mitzvah is Tuesday night, so it'll be after the day night. I was gonna say if we're sober, but maybe now. Okay. But what are we talking about?
50.
Oh, so 50. So we're gonna count. We're counting now. So Shavuot is the 50th day of counting the Omer. Now we count from Pesach until Shavuot. Every day we count the Omer. I know my silly jokes, but we were talking about the 7 character traits, right? And within 7 you have each of those 7 character traits. And so you have this guy won the lottery. He asked him how did he win the lottery. So he said it was easy. It was a little bit of seichel, a little bit of brains, a little bit of mazel, a little bit of luck. So he said, I didn't understand luck. How's he brains? How do you win the lottery? How do you win a lottery with brains? He said, easy. He said, when I was a kid, he said my lucky number was 7. What's my lucky number? I figured when I was filling out the lottery ticket, that 7 was my lucky number. I said 7 times 7. I filled out 48. So what are you laughing about? So he said 48. 7 times 7, 40. That was mazel. So 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 happens like this. We work on ourselves. We work on our character traits for the 49 days of Omer. Now, the night of Shavuot, it's customary to stay up all night and learn Torah. First night of Shavuot, it's customary. We do it around the world. We stay up all night and learn Torah. Why do we learn Torah all night? So it says to fix the mistake that we made, that the Jewish people made when we were at Sinai the night before we got the Torah. It says the night before we got the Torah, we went to sleep. The Talmud even says that the sleep that we had there was a sweet sleep. You know, sometimes you can sleep, and sometimes you get a sweet sleep. So we had a sweet sleep. And no flies or anything to bother us. We were sleeping like, not like babies, because babies get up every 32 hours. Sleeping like 43-year-olds. Don't hear the husband, don't hear the baby. And so because we slept the night before we got the Torah, we just go to sleep. It says to fix that mistake, we stay up every Shabbat night. And the Rebbe explains, according to Kabala, what does that mean? Why would we go to sleep? If we're counting down for so long to get the Torah, and now finally we're about to get the Torah, we're getting it. It's beginning in the morning. We're not taking commandments for that much we can have. This is it. Then we go to sleep. How silly is that? Actually, their plan was like this. It said, we know there's Nun, Shari Binin, 50 gates of understanding. There's also 50 gates, it says, in Kedusha and holiness. There's also 50 gates in unholiness. The opposite of Kedusha. When we were in Egypt, it says we were at minus 49. That's why Hashem had to take us out so quickly, because we were at level minus 49. We would have been at 50. It says in Haggadah, we say it on Pesach night. If Hashem would have taken us out right then we would still be there in Egypt today. And so Hashem had to take us out before we got to that Nun level, the 50 level. Now, we come out of Egypt, and every day after Pesach, we're counting down to receive the Torah. Every day another level. And now we're 49. 49 is all we could achieve by ourselves. The 50th level, that Nun, the Nun Sha'arei Bina, that 50th level, it says once we do the 49 ourselves, Hashem gives us the 50th level as a gift. So the Jewish people thought, because we worked 49 days. So now, the 50th level, we can't do anything for it. It comes from Hashem. The gift, once we do the 49th, Hashem gives us the gift for the 50th. What better way to get from Hashem than to go to sleep? Because when we go to sleep, it says our neshama, our soul leaves our body and goes back to the Creator. And that's why every single morning when we wake up, we say, Mada Ani, we thank God for waking up. We say, thank you for returning the neshama to my body, so I can have another day in this world, right? And the next thing we do is we wash our hands. The reason why we wash our hands is because when our soul leaves our body, or a part of our soul, is 1/60th of the soul leaves our body, sleeping is like 1/60th of death. When our soul leaves the body, that holiness leaves the body, there's unholiness that takes its place. And that unholiness that takes its place, that's where we wash our hands. Like when we go to after a cemetery, I don't know if you've seen, after a funeral, cemeteries is washing their hands. The same washing the hands we do every morning when we wake up. The same washing the hands, if we touch private parts of our body, we're also supposed to wash our hands that way before we make a blessing, before we do come out of the bathroom, we have to wash our hands before we die, before we do anything like that. And so that's that 50th level, which stands for the neshama. Yeah? Go on?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So then we have what's this letter? Is this? End nun, or nun sofit. The end nun, numerical value is same 50. And what this represents, you're asking about two levels of the nun. The nun that we said represents the neshama, the soul. Well, the nun represents the soul and the body. The en nun represents the soul after it leaves the body. When it's in the body, when the soul's in the body, sort of like a baby inside its mother's womb, the baby is cuddled. I don't know what the word is. Whatever it's like. And so the nun is cuddled. I don't know. It's folded over inside the body. Afterwards, able to stretch out. So the nun's able to, the shaman's able to like sort of stretch out. It's not confined to the body anymore. No. I'm at my show for a long time. So, but right, it's able to stretch out, able to stretch itself out. Final. All right. The next letter is Samach. And what sound does Samach make? Yeah. And now, again, we mentioned before this the end nun, the final mem, right? Don't mix us up with the final mem. But don't mix the Samach up with the final mem, which we have here, right? So, Samach, final mem. So just to see again the differences, the Samach is either you'll find it round, circular, Samach, circular, right? Or you'll see, you recognize a slice that's got on there. Slice of pizza, slice of kugel, slice of cake, whatever you want imagination to be. It's the slice cut out. In the Samach, the slice cut out over there. Okay, so the Samach is, all right, this is sliced here. That's chocolate. And or a circular, think of the circular inside with a pie, rank pie. Yeah, and 60. Now, this circle of the Samach represents infinity. Not like a sideways 8, which also, I guess, is right in America, in English, the sideways 8 represents infinity. And beyond. Okay. Oh. Okay. So the Samach represents this infinite. There's no beginning and end. It's a circle, right? So Hashem encompasses us with us from the highest heavens, the greatest consciousness, the deepest. Hashem is always with us. Remember, Hashem's infinite. To say Hashem is only with us in our successes and not in our failures is not believing in Hashem. We have to remember that it all comes from Hashem. Whenever we have success, we thank Hashem for it. And when we have a failure, or we think we have a failure, we thank Hashem for that as well. We build on our failures, and we only after we have all those failures do we have success. Oh, success also with Samach. Success. And some people think that failures, be a failure sucks, also the Samach. But we have to remember that that's the key to success. Hope it wasn't recorded. The next letter we have 60, yes.
Another job.
Okay.
Sorry, another job.
Yeah, otherwise. Yeah, okay, the next letter is Ayin. Ayin. Now, what sound does Ayin make?
Silence.
It's like it's silent. Now, what's the difference between the Ayin and the Aleph? So, for most of us, in the way we pronounce it, the way we pronounce it, there's no difference. In Yiddish, there's a difference, and in Yemenite ways of pronouncing things is a difference. But for the most part, it's not to worry about it. So the ayin will take on, will take on the sound of the vowel. So if you have a pata, let's say ah, now on the ayin it'll be ah. Now ayin means, the name ayin means eyes. That's what it means. These are ayin. One is each one of our eyes is called an ayin. So you can think of the eyes. Let me see the ayin. Right? Now, don't get mixed up between the ayin and another letter we're going to learn soon. Okay? So they both have the eyes on the top, but we'll see the difference soon between them. Now, of course, when we think of the ayin, we think of ayin with two eyes. The Prophet would always say, the reason why Hashem made us with two eyes, he would say, is because some things you're supposed to look at with the right eye, some things with the left eye. It doesn't mean we're supposed to look at this like this. It means, what it means is our right side represents chesed, represents kindness. Our left side represents strictness. Sometimes we look at things with a good eye, and we have to always try to look at things with a good eye. It's kindly. Okay, let's do a little review over here. So, the first letter we learned today is man. Final man. We have the nun, final nun, and the samach, the circular samach, which again we're not going to get mixed up. We'll have the slice cut off. And ayin. Ready?
Yeah.
Right. The next letter is there's a pei. Next letter is the pei. And what does pei mean? Pe, actually. The word is pe. And pe means a mouth. You see a mouth? The mouth. Something's in the mouth. That's a mouth. You know what's in the mouth, by the way? What letter's in the mouth? Huh? What letter do you see in the mouth? Inside the mouth, you see. Inside this.
It's a dot. Another you.
It's a yud. It's an upside down yud over there. See an upside down yud over there? That represents the yud, represents the godliness, the holiness, which is always supposed to be in our mouth. What sound does the pei make?
P.
Like a P. And its numerical value? 80. Okay. Now it has a twin sister, Faye. What exactly is it? It is. In the Torah, they look the same. You won't have the dot in the Torah. This won't be there. I'll give you a difference. Practice. Or if you make a mistake, you might get someone will throw a egg at you, tomato. That's why I stay away.
It's good to be how you use it in the word.
Yeah, but sometimes, it's interesting is sometimes you'll have a word, the same word is sometimes pronounced with a pei, and sometimes with a fei. For example, paro and pharaoh, the same guy. In English we say pharaoh. He's the same guy, the wicked pharaoh. But sometimes in the Torah, when we read the Torah, sometimes it's paro, sometimes it's pharaoh. The difference is that little dot. Or as they say here, a penny. Yeah. The pei has a penny, and the penny fell out. Is the one more time. The pei has a penny, and the penny fell out.
Is that the difference when they come pyro when he's not in using? What is the difference?
I don't know. I know the difference. Kabbalah sees the difference, but I'm not, I don't know.
Next class.
I don't know the answer.
Next class.
I do know a story that I don't know if it's true or it's not true, but it's a story. There's reasons to believe it's true, there's reasons to believe the story is not true. But so the story goes. When during the war, the rebel was in France. That's what the fake France. And the person who was reading the Torah was kept on getting mixed up between the pays and the face, and the Rebbe corrected him. So someone said, it's not a big deal, not make a big deal of it, Because the truth is, according to halacha, as long as we don't change the meaning of the word, it doesn't, you fulfill the mitzvah of reading from the Torah as long as the meaning doesn't change, right? So the guy told him, they're told, don't make a big difference, para. So the story goes, sure enough, the story goes, they're asking what's his name, the guy, and he said Fisher. He smiled. Now you know why I don't know if it's true or not. Huh? I don't think it's true either, but it's a funny story. Just blame it on someone else. But that's all right.
In cursive also has the point in the middle when you write.
So it depends. In the newspaper, usually it won't have. It won't have the dot in it. And you have to know. You have to know what the word is. But let's say when people write, let's say,
Yeah,
usually you write it with you do, right? Yeah, usually you will. Same thing. I'm gonna bet in a vet. You could write. You're writing it when we're writing it ourselves. We would. And both of them have the same numeric value of 80. Okay, this is the final thing.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
The use or the purpose of the numbers that are associated with the letters. Have any, you use them for anything that giving you that numeric value? These kind of words, you using this for anything?
I want to answer the question. I want to give you a few examples. Let's see if we have time today. Otherwise, remind me next week. I'll do it next week.
I will remember.
Okay?
And the student,
Let's see, because I want to.
come back there.
Okay, so the final thing again, same rules like all other final letters, depending where it's used in the word. It's usually now. The next letter is a tzaddik or tzaddik. Tzaddik, what does tzaddik mean? Tzaddik means righteous, like a tzaddik, a holy person is a tzaddik, means righteous. And the root of the word is tzedek, which means right. We also know the word tzedakah. It's the same root. Tzedakah is not because tzedakah we translate in English as charity, but tzedakah is not. We're not doing justice to the word tzedakah when we call it charity, because charity means that we're being so kind and we're giving charity. We're charitable. That's us. And tzedakah is not about that. Tzedakah is about it's the right thing. Hashem made us. He entrusted us with whatever funds He entrusted us. We're just a manager of it. Thank you so much for giving us that opportunity to be that manager. And now we're doing the right thing with what we're supposed to do. That's the right word for tzedakah. So it's the same. So it's the same word tzaddik, tzedakah, tzadok, which means to righteousness, right, justice. And what sound does tzaddik make? Like a pretzel. I don't know how pretzel looks like a tzaddik. They're convinced over here that tzaddik looks like a pretzel. I don't know. But I get the sound, but if you can see the pretzel in it, great. But that's the tzaddik.
Reading first.
Yeah. But okay, then we have the final tzaddik. So how much is tzaddik, by the way? 90, right? So, anybody know what a kumsitz is? Kumsitz is people get together with musical instruments, a guitar, whatever, and we do a jam, a little music jam, as we sing, whatever. So we were writing like we're gonna have a bonfire, a barbecue, and a kumsitz. So we had a whole debate last 2 weeks ago, whatever, when we made the flyer for the kumsitz. I was typing up the person that I wrote Kumzit. Is it TZ or TS? And for some reason whoever was next to me, he wasn't my kids, and they became a whole fight. Is it TZ or TS? Either way, to the tzaddik at the end. Kumsitz tzaddik. Okay. And the same rule applies with the tzaddik if it's beginning or middle of the word, or final tzaddik at the end of the word. Now, if you look at the tzaddik, you'll find a person bent over. That means righteous person. Someone bent over carrying a yud. That we can see, right? That we our imagination can see that. And although he's standing over there, which looks more like a final tzaddik, right? This guy looks more like a final tzaddik. Think of the nun. Remember we learned the difference between a nun and a final nun? Remember the difference between a nun and a final nun? We said that the nun represents the neshama, represents the soul, represents the neshama while it's in the body, all cradled or whatever, cuddled, whatever you want to use. And when it's stretched out, when it leaves the body, right? So although this looks like a final tzaddik because the guy's standing, right? But actually, while we're in this world, our neshama is in our body, like in our body, like the nun, which is not a end nun, right? Like we're cradled, like the neshama, like the baby in mother's womb. Okay, so that's the tzaddik, and the idea of a tzaddik is bent over. Bent over means represents someone who's humble, humility, right? Someone who's bent over, someone who has the humility. Usually a tzaddik is someone who has humility as well. Another characteristic of a tzaddik. Another characteristic of a tzaddik is they're always carrying others on their back, always helping, there to help others. And that's what this silly picture is doing. It's depicting someone who's bent over in humility. Not sure if it's humility, but think of someone who's bent over in humility, and he's helping the yud. He's helping that other yud. He has it carrying the yud on the back. That's the tzaddik. Okay. Ever humble before God. So he's lifting up the yud. The next letter is the kuf. What sound does the kuf make? Same like the kaf. Same like the kaf. We have several letters which have similar sound, not similar, the exact same sound. You have the kuf and the kaf. You have the samach and another letter we'll learn soon. Oh, I have another 3 letters that have the same sound. We have the chaf and the chet, right? So here we have these already represent the Kabbalistic ingredients that these things are, and why one is spelled with one letter and one with the other letter. This is already Kabbalistic reasons why they're spelled one spelled this way, one spelled the other way. But the kuf is how much? 100. The kuf, exactly perfection. Kuf, perfection. And if you realize also the kuf goes lower than every letter. It's a lower letter, right? Like the end letters that go lower, right? Like the lamed goes higher. The kuf is the only regular letter that goes lower. It's the only regular that goes lower. Kuf stands for kedusha, which means holiness. Actually, in Hebrew, the word kuf means a monkey. Monkey, crazy monkey. But in any case, because sometimes in kedusha and holiness we have to be a little crazy, or people think we're crazy holiness. But okay, so the kuf represents kedusha, represents the holiness. What do we do on Friday night? Kiddush comes from the same word, Kiddusha, right? That means holy. We're sanctifying the day. We're sanctifying Shabbat. We're making it a special holy day of Shabbat. That is the kuf. We're making Kiddush. Yeah, old person carrying a cane, curve carrying a cane, whatever, maybe. Yeah, the cane works. But the reason why it's coming down, what's the reason why it's coming down? Kedusha, holiness, right? The reason why it's coming down, the example of Friday night, Shabbat morning, holidays, we're taking challah. And we're taking bread and turning it into challah. Now it's not bread anymore. Now we're making it something holy. Now it's challah. Now we're going to do something holy with the bread. It's not just we're having a pastrami sandwich and we're using it for something. We're taking it now, it becomes a holy item, the bread. We're bringing Kedusha. And the rule of Kedusha is it doesn't stay where it is, but we're supposed to, Hashem wants us to bring that Kedusha into the world, into the physical world. So to draw it down into the physical world. And that's why it's going lower, it's coming down. Because that's the whole idea of Kedusha. It's not should be something abstract somewhere, something somewhere. Right? But should come into the physical world to penetrate the world. That's why the kuf comes lower down than any other. So if the scribe doesn't do it so low, it looks like a regular, then first of all, it can get mixed up with the hay. And second of all, even by itself, it's not a legit enough kuf, doesn't come down enough, then it's income is not. Another thing the sufferer has to be careful about when he's writing mezuzah or something is that this, although it comes down, it can go into the letter under it. Yeah. So if you ask Mati Lucky to show you some interesting in mezuzah, sometimes he can show you so many different things that make it unkosher, and you'll see stories like I guess where it comes into the other letter, or too low, or not low enough. So it says we take the kuf, meaning the kedusha, the holiness, into the world. Again, kuf represents perfection. 100 represents perfection. Yeah, and the next letter is Resh. Resh. What sound does Resh make? Like R. Rashi. So the name Resh, which is rounded. Resh is rounded. Unlike the Dalit, which has that dent. Rounded. So the Resh, unlike so the Resh stands for what holiday can we think of that has the word like Rosh on it? Rosh means head. Rosh Hashanah and Rosh Chodesh, which means the head of the month. Interesting, it doesn't say the beginning, it says the head. Resh also comes to the word beginning. Resh just means beginning, but Rosh is head. They're related. The beginning and the head is related, but they're slightly different. And the reason why it's called Rosh Hashanah, not Reish Hashanah, is because in the head, the whole body is contained in the head. The whole body is contained inside the head. The whole month is contained inside the beginning of the month, Rosh Chodesh, and the whole year is contained inside Rosh Hashanah. The first word of the Torah is Bereshit. Bereshit means, it says, in the beginning. Bereshit in the beginning, right? Beginning, right? It also says that, Rashi says that Beis Reshit is two there's two things that are called Reshit. Says Hashem calls the Torah Reshit, beginning. He calls the Torah as the blueprint for the world. And Hashem calls Neshama, our Neshamas, our souls, He calls that Reshit, because Hashem created the world for our souls waste and clothes inside the body. For us to make the world the better place, for us to make the world, to utilize the world, to make the world use its purpose. And that's why it says great. So it begins with the word Bereshit. Yeshvil Bereshit, in order for us to complete the mission inside the world, to make the world a perfect place. Also, Rasha, a wicked person. It also starts with the same letter. It says for Rasha returns, so goes back to Reshit, goes back to his beginning, then he's already on a spot of, so to speak, okay? He's already ahead, because once we're able to, once we recognize that we made a wrong turn, we're able to get back, our GPS is able to get us back. So if we recognize, reroute, so we have to reroute us. What is it? Reroute. Reroute, also with the Resh, reroute. Okay? Rounded. So again, not to get mixed up with the valid, right? The Resh and the valid, right? Let's just recap what we did over here. We did the pay, we did the pay, final pay, tzaddik, the final tzaddik, kuf, resh. Okay, let's just finish it up. Even though we're running super late, I apologize that we're overtime. The next letter is shin. Shin. And shin makes what sound? Oh, by the way, sorry. But how much is resh? Sorry. Kuf was 100. How much is resh? 300. Resh is 200. And shin is 300. Okay, so now we're going to jump into the 100. Okay? So if you want to write 101, what's the number? How would you do it? 101 would be kuf aleph. Kuf aleph. Kuf is 100. Aleph is 1. Kuf aleph. If you want to do 301, you would do shin aleph. So you have the shin, and then you have the sin. The shin makes what sound? Sh sound, and the sin makes. So the way to remember it is that she is always right. So she is always right. It's on the right side. And the left, you can remember it. If you remember, one of those, you say it's not a sin to be a lefty. The lefty say that.
He's not.
No sin to be a lefty.
He's not.
He's not.
He's always right.
He's not. All right. Or think of him as the sin.
Yeah. You said
it. Okay. And again, how much is the sin?
Same.
They're both 300. In the Torah, they also both look the same. There's no dots in the Torah. We won't see any difference between the Torah. The three yods, exactly. See the 3 yods on top. 3 yods on top. They represent actually they're by design, by divine design, and they represent the 3 pillars of the world. The world stands on 3 pillars: on the study of Torah, on the acts of kindness, and avodah. Avodah is the service of Hashem, and they both represent that. And the next letter is the Taf. What sound does the Taf make? With like a T, the same like the Tet, which you did earlier, same like the Tet. And how much is the Taf? 400. The Taf is the final Taf and its sister. Again, the Sav, sister. But remember, think of the Taf looks different than the Chet. Shun has a toe sticking out. So unlike the chet, which will be missing this part over here, Taf has a toe sticking out. Now, some people say Shabbat Shalom, and some people say not Sabbath. Always a shin over there. Good Shabbos. Because actually, the way it's spelled is with this letter over here. The shin. What's the second letter of Shabbat? Bet. And the final letter is this letter over here. Now, that's weird because again, in the Torah there's no dots. But if you look in the Chumash, it doesn't matter if it's a Sephardic Chumash or Ashkenazi, the same Chumash. No differences. Same Chumash. It's all spelled the same way, but some will pronounce this final letter as a Taf, and some will pronounce this as a Sab. Some will pronounce it Shabbat, and some will pronounce it Shabbos with a Sab at the end. Well, there was no I in there. Shab. We'll get to that part. I see. But that, huh? Yes, Ashkenaz's way of pronouncing it would be with a suf. The Sephardic way of pronouncing it would be with a taf. So in Sephardic way, there's no difference between a taf and a taf. Yemenites and some Sephardim would call it a thuf, like a sort of like a th, a tuf and a thuf. That's not the Ashkenaz way of pronouncing it. That would be a suf, but the Yemenite way would be a thuf. So it's called Shabbos. So, huh?
Brooklyn?
In the hood? Depends where in the hood. Ocean Parkway, the Syrian community is Shabbat. Crown Heights Borough Park. Crown Heights is split down the middle. You have everything. More Shabbos, but you'll have Shabbat also. Borough Park, Flatbush will be all Shabbos. Williamsburg will all be Shabbos. You'll have more Shabbos in Brooklyn. But if you say Shabbat, they'll know what you're talking about. What? Say what? Okay, now just throw a little Kabbalah in there. So again, the three lines over here, you have this it's called the garments of the soul. The garments of the soul are our thought, our speech, and our action of the garments of the soul. And so we start off on top with our thoughts. On top represents our thoughts. That's the top of the tuf. And by the way, you'll see this in other letters as well. On the chet, which we learned earlier, you have the same concept of the split. And again, you'll see this in many concepts of Kabbalah. We're not going to go into it now, but just to touch on it. You have the thought, speech, and action. Those are the three garments of the soul, and they apply in everything. We have our thought process, we have our speech, and we have the action. When Hashem created the world, we spoke about in the beginning the aleph and the bet, how Hashem creates the world, right? So the bet, remember we said represents the world, the bayit, the house of Hashem, which is the world's Hashem's house. And so when Hashem created the world, Hashem created also in thought, speech, and action. There was thought. We just had the month of Nisan we just came from. And it says Hashem created the world in thought in the month of Nisan. In action was in the month of Tishrei when we celebrate Rosh Hashanah. But in thought, Hashem created the world in the month of Nisan. Actually, 5 days prior to that, 6 days prior to that, the month of 25th of Adar, really, it's like Hashem started the creation of the world on 25th of Elul, 5 days, 6 days before Rosh Hashanah. But Rosh Hashanah is the creation, we celebrate the creation of man. So then we have all the letters. Next week we will put this in there. That little slice over here, that extra yud, that toe, so to speak, at the end, right, which differentiates the taf from, let's say, the chet, right? That little toe represents the humility which we're supposed to have in our thought, speech, and action, which make it our thought, speech, and action holy, and we bring Hashem in there at yud, which Okay. We have the mem. Again, let's just do a quick recap. We have the mem, final mem. No, the final mem. Very similar. But remember, the samach has the slice cut off in there. It's more singular. It's more circular, right? The mem, final mem, nun, final nun, samach. Final samach, yeah. Muchas gracias. Nada. And if anyone has a minute, we love good stars. Remember, next week we're going to start at 6 instead of 5:30. Right. They're not like in the language, but they're like every letter is inserted.